And here we are. It's Thursday. It's the 5th of June. And it's been a surprising day in all sorts of different ways. This is not the show we had planned. We had Clive coming along, as we said last week. Clive Bates.
Right.
The god that is Clive, who's joined us tonight. He's here. And we knew Clive was coming, but we didn't know that we'd have Pete Dermody, who sat there. You're on screen, Pete.
Hello.
There's Pete Dermody. And Simon Thurlow, who they both have.
Yeah.
There he is. They both have things in common, as in they both live in Welsh Wales. And this morning at stupid o'clock for me, because I'm not normally one for getting up at 7:30, but this morning at stupid o'clock we discovered that there was an e-cigs summit happening in Wales. And as most people know, we've adopted this nothing about us without us stance.
Right.
So there was lots of tweetage going on, and we'll tell you more about what happened after the titles. But first, please join me in saying hello to the Queen of Speed, the effervescent speediness that is the bubblicious fast babe that is the one and only Sav. How are you diddling, Speed Queen?
Oh, great. I'm even better than normal.
Look at that, high definition blushing. I love it.
What can I say?
You could say I'm going to put a pin through the lead and slow it down a bit.
Nah, never gonna
I
happen.
didn't think so somehow. So tonight we're going to be talking about whales, not the big fat ones that swim in the sea. We're going to be talking about this e-cigs summit because both Simon and Pete got there, and we'll tell you how they got there after the titles, because this is VT Talk. Yes, so here we are on VT Talk talking about Wales, and during the course of the titles, tell everybody what you told me, Clive.
Well, I actually, my last sort of serious grown-up job was working in the Welsh Government. I was Director General Sustainable Futures, so I was the civil servant responsible for like energy, environment, planning, housing, culture, tourism, media, sport, regeneration and so on. So I know the Welsh Government reasonably well, actually. I love Wales. I love working there. It's a great, it's a great idea, but sometimes it gets things wrong, as in this case.
Yes. Right. We're going to keep on coming back to that during the course of the show. But I'm finding this all really, really interesting. As I say, as of this morning, well, I'm going to ask both Pete and Simon, did either of you know that there was an e-cigs summit in Wales? We'll start with you, Pete.
No, didn't know anything about it till I got into work about 8 o'clock this morning.
So there you go. So Vapors had not been invited as far as you were aware. What about you, Simon? Did you know anything about it?
I found out just before 7 o'clock, literally because I was looking on that Click Wales website because I wanted to see what the Ash response was to what Drakeford had said yesterday. And I made a comment on it, and the next thing Ash Wales were tweeting about this summit. So I started asking questions. What summit? Where? At which point they said it's in Swansea. And I said, well, I'm only 3 miles away. Why weren't we told about it?
What did they say to that?
Pretty much the same answer as Pete got. It's been up on our website for a long time. You need to subscribe to our mailing list and you find out about these things. It's fully booked. But we'll keep you up to date. So then we started berating them.
Yes, it wasn't just you two. Everybody piled in on Twitter on this. Yeah, and I've said this before, but if you're not on Twitter, people out there, you really ought to be on there, because you find out things you did not know, as is amply evidenced by today, because nobody in the vaping community had the foggiest clue this was going on. Clive, is that something that they do an awful lot in Wales, set these things away and just not tell anybody that they're happening?
Well, I'm not sure who was this was an Ash Wales thing, was it?
I think so, yes.
It's not the Welsh government. The Welsh government wouldn't do that. They would try and be as inclusive as possible, in my experience. They might get that wrong, but they wouldn't be willfully excluding people. Ash Wales, I suspect, like a lot of people in public health, are still feeling their way with vapors. You have to remember that these people have grown up seeing smokers as the enemy, and therefore they haven't really ever done what you should do in public health, which is adopt that nothing about us without us sort of ethos. So, and they're all coming round to the idea. They're all flirting with the idea of talking to vapors, and we've seen, Louise Ross and people like that have made, kind of huge inroads into the sort of thinking on this. But they're all sort of coming round to it at different speeds, and Ash Wales maybe are just not quite ready for it. I think given what Public Health England did, I suppose the basic attitude that there is in Ash in London, I suspect they're sort of playing catch up a bit.
Yes, I suspect you might be right. But anyway, cutting a long story short, both Simon and Pete said, we can come. This was after the Welsh Ash Wales. It's Ash Wales Cymru, I believe. You have to put the Cymru after Wales. They said, well, vapors are welcome after 1 o'clock. And these two guys just went, I'll be there. And off they went and tweeted, I'm on my way, both of them, and met up there. And after that, we were watching questions that we were asking. So I'll go to Pete first. What did you make of the welcome that you got from Ash Wales? Tell me what happened.
Well, when we got there, they were very welcoming, offered us drinks and everything, and they said we'd value your input. They told us what the programme was going to be for the rest of the afternoon, and said that we'd be able to sort of there'd be a panel, and we'd be able to ask questions to the panel later on in the afternoon. So it was very friendly, nice atmosphere there when we got there.
Good. Did you feel the same, Simon?
I did, yeah. I mean, when we arrived there, they were still all eating, so we were a bit apprehensive about going in. We thought, I'll let them eat their food first. But oddly enough, while we were standing out there, ITV Wales turned up at exactly the same time.
Oh!
So we had a nice little chat with them before we went in, and when we went in and sat down at the table, then they went up and set up next to us. Originally, they said they were going to have a chat with us at the end of the day, but they then disappeared around about 3 o'clock, so we never got that chance. But they were filming all around there. I believe it's to be as part of an S4C programme that I was originally supposed to do an interview for, called A Bida Bedwar, and I believe it's supposed to be airing sometime next week. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that and find out exactly when they're airing it, but there is footage from it.
Indeed. So who'd spoken by the time you two guys got there, or who was next up?
Peter Hayesiak was next up, wasn't he, when we got there?
So you heard Peter speak?
Yeah, so we heard him speak.
We had a lot of good gold from him.
Well, right, who wants to take that? Who wants to say what Peter said? Clive, feel free just to dive in at any time you like.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, I'm
okay.
paying attention.
No, I wasn't. Didn't mean anything like that. It was just a case of your insights as to as how things go. I think are extremely valuable. So who's going to start with what Peter Hayek had to say then? Pete, we'll go with you. Why not?
All right. He basically said what he said in all the other sort of meetings where he was talking about regulation or over-regulating is going to, cause people to sort of. I'm lost for words now. I'm going to switch to Simon. I've just gone completely blank. Sorry.
Go on then, Simon.
Well, yeah, I mean, he started off. He did, a bit of the background of e-cigarettes, where they come from, and I've got a note here. Something I found quite amusing is he said that Honlick should be up for a Nobel Prize.
I would agree.
And then he went on, talking about the evolution of cigarettes, how there's been 200 opinion pieces on e-cigs published so far. Mostly in 2010 they were very negative. Now they're mostly positive. He then went on to compare the evolution of e-cigarettes with the evolution of the computer, which I found quite an interesting one. In so much as he was saying, if you think of what computers were like even 10, 20 years ago, they were rubbish, and now they're so much more powerful and so much more usable. And he said he was likening that to e-cigarettes, saying exactly the same evolution is happening with e-cigarettes, and he said given a few more years, they will be twice as good and twice as effective as they are now. And it was basically a lot, kept on going along the lines of that. And he was also rubbishing claims about the fears that people have got about nicotine and how poisonous it is, and saying that the usual figures of 50 milligrams is absolute rubbish, and was going on saying that there had been attempted suicide attempts with nicotine at 1500 milligram, which have failed. And for some strange reason, one of the things that stood out from his presentation when he was talking about this, and I've got in sort of quotes on my notepad here, was voluminous vomiting.
What?
Yeah, that's one of the things he was associating with the fact that if you overdo it on nicotine, that's what happens.
Throw up.
Well, yeah, but it's just
a statement that stood out to me when he was on his presentation, and I had to write it down.
yes. As phraseology goes, voluminous vomiting. I quite like that. It puts Technicolor yawn into a different kind of thing. But of course, this is now gaining traction worldwide, isn't it, Clive?
Yeah, I mean, there's been an attempt to sort of create a scare story around how poisonous nicotine is, but actually, there aren't really the bodies to justify the concern. That's absolutely right. The toxicity is greatly overstated, but people don't just swallow it and die. They swallow it and throw up if they swallow it at all. It's one of those things where the risks are sort of ordinary. There's plenty of dangerous things that we have around the house, like bleach, like flammable liquids, barbecue fuel, and God knows what. And somehow life goes on without a big sort of moral panic around these things. And that's because we package them properly, we put them in tamper-proof containers, we put a label on them saying they're very dangerous, and everyone's fine. And that's all we need to do with nicotine liquids, to be honest. It's not a great problem. I was saying today, it's a message to the industry, really. There's an ISO standard, ISO 8317, I think it is, or 8713, I can't remember which is on tamper-proof packaging. Just adopt it, look it up, adopt it, and job done. So I honestly think some of these things they're turned into like massive problems, but they're not really. They're straightforward things to overcome, which have been faced a million times before in a million different circumstances.
Yes, I would agree. And Peter Hayek came up with something as well about penicillin. Did either of you two guys pick that up?
Yeah, he did.
Pete?
Yes, he did. He did mention that about penicillin, and how many lives would have been lost if nobody had penicillin. Yeah. Yes,
I think it was something along the lines of and I can't remember when penicillin was discovered, probably early 20th century. If they'd taken the precautionary principle that they're trying to apply to e-cigs and had applied that to penicillin, thousands of lives would have been lost.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's safe, because I'm here to tell you I am personally highly allergic to penicillin. You give that to me and I die unless I'm in hospital. And they've tried it, and I was in hospital, thank God. And seriously, it was not a pleasant experience. Started off with a measly type rash and ended up with me being intubated and God knows what else, and brought back from the brink Thankfully, they knew about it. But obviously, had that happened when penicillin was first there, and Mark Drakeford and Stanton Glance and one or two others, including Martin McKee, had been around, they'd have said, no penicillin. And during the course of the Second World War, how many people would have died that wouldn't otherwise, given that it's...
Dave, can I just say a word about the precautionary principle? Because it's one of the most annoying things in my life, really.
Yeah.
The precautionary principle is actually quite a sensible idea, but it's grossly misused by people who think that, well, we don't have any evidence, but we want to do something, so we'll use the precautionary principle to justify it. But actually, under the precautionary principle, and this goes back to the penicillin example, you have to look at the risks and benefits symmetrically. So you have to say, what are the risks and what are the benefits of both action and inaction? So, if you don't allow penicillin to be used, you get all the risks associated with people dying of infections, and you have to factor that in. And it's the same with e-cigarettes. You want to do something on a precautionary basis using the precautionary principle, you have to factor in the risk that it will end up with more people smoking and therefore more harm associated with that. And none of the people, the sort of opportunistic campaigners who use the precautionary principle bother to include that side of the equation. So anyway, it's a bit of a digression, I know, but it's worth knowing that the precautionary principle doesn't just justify intervention in any old circumstances. You have to look at both the risks and the opportunities foregone.
Yes, and I think I'm safe to say that they invoke the precautionary principle to mean we think we don't have enough knowledge and therefore we're going to ban it.
Right. It's like we've run out of arguments, we've got no evidence, but we still want to do something, so voila, here is the precautionary principle.
Indeed. And I don't know whether the precautionary principle was invoked in this meeting. Was it, Simon?
No, it wasn't. Not really. We'll come on to that when we come on to some of the other people that spoke there, specifically Ms. Bishop. But the other thing I will say that Professor Hayek did go on to dismantle some of the sounds and noises that have been coming from the other side of the Atlantic from Mr. Stanton Glance. When he kept, he's been going on about, oh yes, we found formaldehyde in e-cigarettes, and Professor Hayek was very adamant in pointing out to these people, yes, you can get formaldehyde in e-cigarettes, but only if you crank them up to a level that nobody can vape them at.
Which seems an incredibly fair point, and probably a good point to see what chat's been having to say, Sav.
Chat, again, nobody in chat had heard about this, so they were all as surprised as we were about it. Whip It Up has asked, were you allowed to vape whilst you were there?
Oh, there's a question. Pete.
To be honest, we didn't ask. But we were so sort of engaged in sort of listening to what was being said. I don't even think I picked mine up, to be honest.
Did you, Simon?
No, we had all our kit on the table, so to speak, so everybody could see it. So we were quite adamant that everybody was going to know that we were the vapors in the room. But no, we didn't. And actually, when we spoke to a few people after it all finished, they actually expressed surprise. They said, we saw all the devices there, but we never actually saw you using them. And I said, well, there you go. There's the nicotine addiction bit blown out the window then, because we can go 3 hours without touching them.
Well, yes, and the nicotine addiction bit was also addressed, I believe, by Professor Hayek. No, it wasn't. That was someone else. We'll come on to that a little bit later. Sav, what's next?
Ridian passed me some information about the S4C thing. He says it's 9:30, Tuesday the 10th of June, Virgin Channel 166, Freesat Channel 120 and Sky 134. So take notice of that.
Thank you, Ridian.
Very boring is Professor Hayek is a very smart and great guy to have on our side. Fergus Mason says, what really upsets me.
Didn't say that, did he?
No, he didn't say that. He said pisses me off, didn't he?
Didn't he? Said grips my poop. But
okay.
He says calls to poison centres become cases of poisoning bloody hacks. And Blaze has said, Clive is far too sensible for this world. How does he cope with the madness he must encounter?
Really?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I've found it quite difficult at times over the last 18 months, as Sav will readily attest when I Skype her up and go, "Oh, tear me hair out." How the hell do you cope?
Well, it is very difficult. I mean, there's a reason I left Ash in 2003, actually. I was just sick of the madness. But, I mean, the way I'm looking at it at the moment is that there's a massively, which didn't exist when I left Ash in 2003, e-cigarettes didn't exist. We had snus, and I was like driven mad by that. I was thinking, why does everyone want to ban this bloody stuff, which seems to be doing so much good in Sweden? What's interesting about this, and I find it absolutely fascinating, Dave, is you can look at the issue itself, e-cigarettes, but you can go back a step and look at how, in the abstract terms, how politics is working around this. And I think I have learned more about the European Union in this last year than I've learned in my entire career. About how it functions and about what it does, about what its biases are. So I'm finding it actually really fascinating. Also, I think there's a big fight to win here. There really is. I mean, I'm prone to hyping this up a bit, but there really is like millions and millions of lives at stake. And I don't mean like, obviously everyone's going to die at some point, but I mean welfare, people not getting cancer, not getting cardiovascular disease, not getting emphysema, COPD, strokes and all that sort of thing. And if you work in public health, that should be what gets you out of bed and gets you to work and makes you excited. So to me, this is a massive opportunity. And I think I find it great fun. It's great fun to be on the side of the vapors and to learn so much from people like you and all the people on chat and everything. And to really turn this into a public health cause and start to see people coming over and getting more and more vocal, like John Britton, like Robert West. I mean, they've always been sympathetic to this cause, but sort of speaking out and being more assertive. People challenging Stan Glantz and Simon Chapman and people like that for their silly views, and starting to see a consensus forming. You know, that was the part of that thing behind the letter to the WHO. You know, those pretty serious people signed up to that and have made a big statement now about where this stuff fits in public health, and we'll see how that plays out over the next few months.
Indeed so. It's I think we live in very interesting times.
We do. It's very interesting.
Yes, I mean, I've learned more than I thought I ever would about all of this kind of stuff. Europe I had very little interest in, and apparently that's an interest level that's shared by 60-odd% of the population of the UK. I don't know about the rest of you.
But they're up to stuff in Brussels that you don't know about, and you can't really influence very. I mean, what you find is it's very, very hard to get any purchase on what happens in Brussels. You've got a whole bunch of MEPs who are basically unaccountable, not particularly responsive for the most part, with some notable exceptions. You've got weird alliances that run across Europe that you can't really influence that easily, and it takes a massive effort to get them to change their mind in a way that it doesn't in the UK Parliament.
Yes, it's very, very strange. I think I might be in the party of out, but let's leave that to one side. What else have we got, Sav?
Chat, I just totally agree with what Clive has said, and I think the feeling is you and us both here, Clive, with everything that's gone on in the EU.
Exactly.
Indeed, yes. It's probably a good point to take the adverts,
Yes.
so we shall do that. There was something sprang into my mind that I should say, and it's sprung back out again, and I was going to say it just before the adverts, but if it comes back to me, I'll feed it in before the next ones. It was a bit silly. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Charge your glasses, do not go anywhere. iVapour and iVapour Elixir, based in Yorkshire, for your e-cig needs. That's iVapour.co.uk and iVapour-elixir.co.uk. iVapour and iVapour-elixir.co.uk, proud sponsors of VapourTrails.tv. And we're back in the room, yes, indeed. Now, let us move this along. And I'm going to go, I think, to Simon to tell us what happened next, because it gets really interesting after this, doesn't it, chaps? Does a bit. Go on then, Simon. Julie Bishop was up next, wasn't she?
Yeah, Julie Bishop is basically your biggest clone. She is the Welsh version of this. She is who is advising Mark Drake. So it should come as surprise to anybody that she was singing exactly the same song sheet. She came in my presentation, one of the first things she said is identify any positive attributes that support the widespread advertising and unrestricted use of e-cigarettes. She went on to talk about harm reduction and says there are clearly positive benefits, but it should not displace quitting. Significant commercial interest, more pointedly from BAT and people like that. That's what she didn't like. And I can't read handwriting here now. It says marketing currently doesn't major on this issue. Now, I have absolutely no idea what she meant by that. But it seemed a very curious statement to make. And basically, she went off on one then, repeating basically the same tired old argument that we've been hearing from Mark Drakeford. But where it got interesting is when she started having a go at the advertising, and she was showing us different advertising on a screen. This is the point when Deborah Arnott turned around and said, "Oi, you can't put that on the screen. That's American advertising. That's not even allowed in this country." And then they went up and had quite a big fuss up between the two of them, arguing the fact about what should and shouldn't be on that screen.
Really? Right, hang on. Let me just slow the bus down a bit there. So, Deborah Arnott got on her hind legs and told Julie Bishop that she was being disingenuous about using American advertising when she's talking to a British. Okay. Clive, what do you make of that?
Well, what do you want to make of that? Deborah gets a very bad press amongst vapors, and it's not deserved. She basically supports all this, and always has done. She's been trying to negotiate the politics of a very awkward and backward coalition. It's not how she would put it, of course, but that's what she's been trying to do. She also, with Martin Dockrell, had the foresight to introduce their survey, which they've been doing with YouGov, which is actually yielding some very useful data, which we should all be very grateful for. Deborah is understands the harm reduction arguments. She understands at the very heart of it that this is a pragmatic strategy that will, all the sort of other arguments about population effects, gateways, and basically nothing to them. And she's very supportive. Where I think she's gone wrong, and she and I disagree about this, but she's gone wrong in that she has seen the best way of managing this category to manage them as medicines through medicines regulation. And she was an early adopter of that idea back in 2009, I think, when Department of Health and the Tobacco Control community thought that harm reduction products would come from the pharmaceutical industry, because at that time the Nicorette inhaler had just got an indication for harm reduction, and they sort of wanted to encourage that development, but within a medicines regulation context. And I think the problem is that they have never really come back from that. Right.
Right.
So she's a I can't speak for her, obviously, but she is basically a supporter of this idea and understands its value, and works tirelessly, frankly, behind the scenes to move people along in the right direction.
Cool. So, what did you make of Julie Bishop then, Pete?
The one thing that stuck out for me was that she said, as long as people sort of remain addicted to nicotine, they're at risk of tobacco-related harm. And I think Deborah stood up again then and said, I'm an ex-smoker, but I've still got a risk that I might relapse and go back, and I'm not addicted to nicotine anymore. Which,
Yes.
Put it in a place, really.
Okay.
I mean, Deborah's got the right argument there,
Yeah.
which is actually these products are a prevention against relapse. Why would you relapse if you were happily using an e-cigarette? You're much more likely to relapse if you're abstinent, you're missing it, and you've got occasional withdrawal symptoms and pangs, or your life goes into a bit of a crisis and you need to sort of reach out for a crutch or something. That's how people relapse, not by using something that meets the need without actually smoking.
There's so much sense in that. There absolutely is. So, do we need to go much further with Julie Bishop? Because I really want to hear what Deborah Arnott had to say when she got on her own 2 feet. Pete, what do you reckon?
The only thing I'd say, she did have a pop at Peter Hayek.
Did she?
She did.
Cheeky cow.
Because I think he was asked for some quote to put in the media, and I think he said something along the lines of, "I would rather a child take up vaping than take up smoking," and she had a go at that, and she said, "No, we at Public Health Wales, we would rather them not do either,"
Right. So she hasn't worked out that if nicotine is harmless, and I believe those are the words that Peter Hayek used. That if it's harmless and you're not harming anybody around you, why is there a problem? Patently she doesn't get that, does she?
No.
No, I didn't think so. So, right.
I think what's interesting here, Dave, is that she will be feeling rather desperate at the moment, because Julie Bishop's and Public Health Wales kind of gone out on a limb here, advised the Labour Health Minister, Mark Drakeford, they should do this, and actually has found that there isn't the support for it that she might have expected. And then you've got the opposition in Wales, Plaid Cymru and the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives have all united against him to say, you're basically talking nonsense, evidence-free nonsense. We're going to make you look stupid. So it's no wonder she is feeling a little bit of stress here, which is she's probably drawn them into this position and is finding actually is politically vulnerable. The opposition has not bought it. Often, like in the UK Parliament, anything you say is anti-tobacco, everybody basically agrees with it. But in this case, the opposition in Wales haven't bought it. Plaid Cymru is quite sensible on these issues. Liberal Democrats are sensible, Conservatives are sensible. So they're now sniffing an opportunity to give Mark Drakeford a bloody nose. She isn't getting the support from the people that she thought she would get it from. A big problem for her. No wonder she's a bit testy.
I do like the idea that she's having a big problem. I suspect that's the sentiment that's echoed in chat and either side here. So,
It's a shame, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I mean, it's summed up by the phrase, "Oh dear, how sad." Never mind,
But
eh?
if there's anything we can do to make it even more uncomfortable and unpleasant for her, I mean, I'd be the first to contribute my time.
Okay, ideas from chat, please. I'm sure there'll be millions. You shouldn't have said that. You're going to get lots and lots of work to do now. Yeah. So, Deborah Arnott then. Do you want to take that one, Pete? What did Deborah have to say?
Well, we didn't actually see Deborah do her sort of presentation. After Julie Bishop had done hers, that's when they brought the panel out and they opened the floor then to questions.
Okay.
And I think the first question came from Trading Standards about sort of battery safety and the purity sort of the e-liquid, and that they tested, I think it was 3 out of 10 bottles of e-liquid, which had, I think 3 out of the 10 had wrong amounts of nicotine in them. And they directed, I believe, the exploding battery to Peter Hayek, and he said, well, have you looked in to see how many sort of laptop or mobile batteries have exploded? And basically, he was saying that the media are looking out for anything to do with e-cigs, and if there's one explosion of an e-cig, it's all the news,
So, what else happened in this panel? Who was on it, Simon?
Peter?
Yeah, well, I will just point out that Hayek did actually point out to these trading standards that e-cigs have actually got an excellent safety standard. He said compared to most electrical equipment, and he likened it to mobile phones, laptops. He said the e-cig safety is absolutely first class. He said you see very, very few issues with the batteries and all that.
That's true.
But where we went next, basically, the Ash Wales people were directing it around to different tables and saying you're allowed 2 questions. After they went to the first ones, they went to us and they said, have you got anything to say? And I just looked at Julie Bishop in the eye and I said, I think you know what's coming. And then just went off and said, what's your problem with nicotine? It's no more harmful than caffeine. So why do you have an issue with anybody being addicted or using it? And secondly, because there's something that she said in her presentation that she didn't see anything wrong with why vapors can't go outside with smokers, because smokers have been used to doing it for years. To which I said, why the hell should I go and stand outside with the smokers when I've given up smoking? And this is the point at which Deborah Arnott jumped in, and she was like a Rottweiler with a bone, because her exact words were, I was going to bring this up with you as well, and I want to talk about this. This needs to be thrashed out.
Wow.
And this was before Julie Bishop even got to answer. And then they went on for about 15 minutes, the two of them arguing, and Julie Bishop was on the back foot for the vast majority of that 15 minutes.
Right, so...
How interesting.
Isn't
That is very interesting.
Why?
Well, often in these meetings, people are consensus building, they're trying to avoid confrontation, they're trying to, if you like, sort of smooth the path to agreement and everything. So you get something like that. What you're seeing is a commitment to the issue that is more than just, right, I now need to deal with this. It's like, I now think this is the right thing to do. And I'm annoyed by somebody in the room who's talking rubbish. So what I take away from that is that this is a sign that good people, and Deborah is a good person. I know a lot of people think she isn't, but she is. Good people in public health are starting to come round to this and are starting to go on the offensive. They're not just on the defensive or just apologetic about it. They're on the offensive, and that is an exceedingly good development.
Well, yes. I'm going to throw this to chat because I'm watching Sav's eyes in glorious high definition, it has to be said. And they're flitting from side to side at a hell of a rate. And what's chat saying?
There's a lot of very interesting comments, a lot that I can't read out again. Doodlebug has said, go or not, and that's something I never thought I'd say.
It's something I never thought she'd say either.
That's a new first.
And she followed that up with, I must confess, though, I'm thoroughly enjoying constructing our response to the public consultation in Wales. They made the mistake of asking for evidence. Neil Roth has said, we know if we have too much nicotine, we don't need a measurement. Our bodies tell us that ourselves. And Vaping Sam has just said, it's like sharks. The only time they get in the papers is when they attack. Using that as your research, you are convinced that all they do is swim around and look for humans to eat.
Well, yes, you would think that. Actually, you've mentioned the consultation that the Welsh Government is doing, headed up by Mark Drakeford, who appears to make bigger loon of himself every time he speaks. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Ash's response to that was pretty much what Deborah, it seems, has been coming up with during the course of this meeting today, that nobody knew about and we had to shame Ash Wheels into letting folks up to. But kudos, they let the two guys up there, which is all good. It's just after 22. I'm going to take another set of adverts, and when we come back, we'll kind of finish off what happened at the summit, and then I want to talk a little bit about the early day motion that's going on, and then a little bit as well, we've got some more information from Clive that I want to talk about, and more insights and stuff like that. At the moment, I'm a happy bunny. Are you a happy bunny, Sav?
I am, yes.
Are you a happy bunny, Pete?
Yep.
Are you a happy bunny, Simon?
Serious.
What about you? Are you happy as well, Clive?
Quite happy. I think this is a really simple issue. I just think all the problems have been introduced by people whose job it is to do, kind of protect public health, basically. So I think it's a non-issue. I think it's an amazing development, and I'm frustrated that the problem is not the tobacco industry, it's not the products, it's not the companies involved, it's the public health community.
Yes, I would agree. On which note, we'll be back in a couple of ticks. Don't go anywhere. Do you know, there are times when I wish you could be part of what goes on behind the adverts, because we have some marvellous conversations and find out stuff sometimes that we can't share, but stuff that we can share. I'm going to throw it across to Pete, I think, to kind of finish off where the summit went. So come on, take us to the end of it, Pete.
Right. I just want to mention that the Stop Smoking Wales service. I heard them sort of joking on the table, we might be out of a job, to which then Simon piped up and said, you need to speak to Louisa Ross. And we sort of pushed the stop, how she was the instigator in Leicester, and now it's spread through the rest of England. And they seem to be interested in that. And we need to get them in contact with Louisa, I think.
Mm-hmm.
With regards to sort of how it sort of ended, after that panel, what's her name? Forgot her name now.
Julie Gilmore.
Julie Bishop came back to our table, and Deborah Arnott followed her over and said, can I take your contact details? I shall send you over all the evidence you need to know, because towards the end of the sort of panel, they were discussing nicotine use as a recreational thing.
Mm-hmm.
That once they get public health to understand that there's no harm, it's the same as having a cup of coffee, And I don't know, I seen something in Julie Bishop where she thought, oh, maybe if you can show me the evidence, maybe we may change our stance on that. So there was a little discussion between them about sort of contact details and things like that. But once Julie Bishop left, 2 people from Public Health Wales, 2 other staff members, came over to our table and they engaged with us. They were asking, how I got into vaping, and I don't know why they asked, but they said, "Can you get high on it?" They were asking some weird questions, but they were very, very forthcoming with the ask for my email address and said they wanted to get back in touch. But it was strange that they waited till Julie Bishop to leave before they approached us.
So right, because I'm a little bit slightly out of touch. Julie Bishop is Public Health Wales, yes?
Yeah.
So they waited for the big boss to go.
Yeah.
And then they wandered across to get the proper information from the people at the coalface, the people that are actually using these things.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so they're kind of not convinced about where Julie's at.
Well, they probably realised that she's politically vulnerable, if they've got any sense. The interesting thing about this sort of situation is that she has staked this. She's probably staked her relationship with the health minister on this, has talked him into this position, and is now finding that there's no actual external support for it. So the opposition's against it. The public health, she suddenly finds she's getting flack from people she thought she could bank on for support, from Ash, from Deborah Arnott. I mean, that must be quite alarming if you're promoting a tobacco control measure and you're getting it in the face from Deborah Arnott. That is going to be quite worrying, isn't it?
I would think.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
so she's probably feeling very, very vulnerable and exposed. And her staff will be thinking, oh my goodness, if we cocked all this up, we better find out the truth and make sure that we're kind of, digging a sensible escape tunnel.
Well, yes, it certainly seems that. And I've got to say, over the last few weeks, in talks I've had with various different people, conversations I've had with folks who have made decisions, they've turned around and said, when, we kind of put the evidence and the information in front of them, I've heard it said on a number of occasions, I think we might have dropped a bollock. We might have got this wrong. And there's another phrase that resonates with me, we have effed up.
I think the interesting thing is the stuff that's come out of Robert West's group is very powerful. Like X% better than NRT. Then there's the Ash survey showing that there's 2.1 million people using e-cigarettes and 700,000 of them are ex-smokers. That's pretty powerful stuff. You suddenly can't say this is all a big problem because it's solving the problems that they all come to work supposedly to solve.
Yes, absolutely right. And as Pete and Simon have mentioned, that these people at the Stop Smoking Services have said we might be out of a job. That's got to be something that they actually should welcome, really. If they're serious about what they're doing, they should welcome being put out of a job. Now, I don't propose to go into what Anna Gilmore said too much. That was fairly widely reported, and it is on the website of the summit that went on, and Sav's got that. And
what did she say?
She was...
Did herself.
Go on.
She just rambled on, talking about how important the TPD was and how much the big tobacco bought up snus and all that, back in the day, and that they're going to do the same thing again with these cigarettes.
Bullshitter.
Say that again?
She's a massive bullshitter. The snus argument has not come from big tobacco. In fact, it's small tobacco that's behind snus, which is Swedish Match. And actually, there's a broad consensus amongst the thinking people in public health that the snus ban is a ridiculous failure. And a whole load of them wrote to the Commission in 2011. In that letter to WHO, it basically includes snus as a harm reduction product that should be promoted. So, I mean, to see it as a big tobacco conspiracy is just totally ridiculous. her research on BAT's approach to snus is, it just ought to be shredded and put down the drain. It's absolute rubbish. Doesn't really understand anything about this.
Do you know, I have a great problem with you when you sit on the fence, Clive. I wish you'd say what you really think.
Well, I'm trying to be nice about it.
Bullshit says it all for me. Does that about sum it up, Simon?
Well, the best thing of all is, after she'd said all that about the TPD, she then finished by saying, perhaps we shouldn't be looking at over-regulation by this because we're handing it to the tobacco companies.
What?
And I thought, hang on, that's not the way
she's-
you started, but that's the way she ended. And I thought, you just completely contradicted yourself.
Well, she's finally got our argument, which is that all the regulatory obsessives in this world are handing the entire e-cigarette market as a gift to the tobacco industry. Which is all the people who want medicines regulation, the TPD and everything, all these people who want millions of tests and huge amounts of data. The only people who can do that easily is the tobacco industry. It's the same in the States with the FDA's approach. The only people that can get over those hurdles that they're setting is the tobacco industry. I don't have a problem myself with the tobacco industry being involved in this field, but if the regulators come in and make it so hard for anyone else to be involved, then that's where the problem comes from. Not the companies themselves.
I would agree 100%. I would absolutely agree 100%, because all of the innovation in e-cigs, as we all know, and I know I'm singing to the choir here, but all the innovation in e-cigs has come from the small businesses that are devoted to e-cigs. There's no innovation that we've seen from big tobacco, small tobacco.
Catch-up.
Yeah, absolutely right. They're so far behind the curve, it's unbelievable. And they're having to run at 1,000,000 miles an hour just to get caught up, never mind innovate.
And actually, Dave, there's a deeper problem than that, which is you can now see in the sales figures a structural shift to the second, third generation tanks and mods type products, which would be the things that would be most badly shafted by medicines regulation. So if we'd had medicines regulation, we'd be stuck on sort of commoditized cigar-like products, which actually the market is, under its own sort of self-interested way, moving away from.
Well, yes. I mean, it is. I mean, even, a year ago when we were sitting looking at this kind of stuff, I'd have said, yes, cigar likes, these kind of thing, do have a place in the market. I don't think they do anymore. It's moved away from that. People understand now. They're used to seeing proper e-cigs being used, and so something like an ego just doesn't faze them anymore, and neither should it.
That's right. I mean, I think, there's no reason to exclude them. I mean, maybe some people will like them because they look like cigarettes, and maybe it's the sort of starter product and the thing that people convert with. So what? Good. Let them be on the market and let people buy them who wants them. But what you don't want to do is create a regulatory framework that stuffs everything else by making it too difficult. So, I mean, it's looming large for me at the moment is what the appropriate form of regulation should be in the e-cigarette market. And I feel we've got to be so careful, because there's lots of big credible companies who want to rush in with actually often with good motives. They want the standards to be as high as possible, and they want to show that they've got excellent products and great manufacturing facilities and excellent science and everything. But if they make those the standards, we will end up with only a few products that can actually meet those standards.
And that, of course, is a worry, which actually leads us quite nicely into this early day motion. Now, I'm keeping my fingers crossed this is going to work. It's a little bit of tech that I cobbled up earlier on, because I'm pushing it to the limit here tonight, and I'm enjoying it terrifically. There is an early day. Yes.
Sound on an early day motion.
I forgot to put sound on the early day motion, which was not a good idea. So I've changed that now, and we should now have sound. Yes, we do. Early day motion 6, electronic cigarettes, it says, sponsored by Eric Joyce and Jeremy Corbyn. That this house notes the opinion of leading world public health experts, including Professor Robert Worst of University College London, that e-cigarettes have the potential to save hundreds of millions of lives across the world. Believes that if regulators treat low-risk nicotine products as traditional tobacco products, they are improperly defining them. Regrets the decision of the EU to regulate e-cigarettes in strange and contradictory ways, and believes that such inappropriate constraints upon the labelling and sale of e-cigarettes will have the perverse effect of reducing the rate at which cigarette use is declining. Further notes the potentially enormous health benefits that e-cigarettes could bring to developing nations, accepts the health and economic benefits which e-cigarettes can bring to the least well-off, urges public authorities to regard e-cigarettes as a positive and not as an equivalent to cigarettes, and further urges the government to impress upon the World Health Organization that encouraging rather than discouraging e-cigarette manufacture, sale and use will bring great health benefits across the world. That's an early day motion.
Oh, I just want to stand up and applaud, don't you really? I mean, that's a great statement.
I'm doing better than nursing a semi here, I'm telling you. That is a fabulous piece of prose. It really is. That's got me. Yes. I like it. Thing is, everybody, the world and his wife, well, the UK and his wife, or her or husband, whichever way you want, partner, needs to be getting on to his or her or their MP and saying, do you know this thing exists? Go and sign it. Talk to all your colleagues. Tell them to sign it. Tell them to sign up to it. And then, when you've done that, go and make representation to anybody and everybody. Find the responsible ministers and just go and tell them. Beat them over the head with it. We should all be doing that, I believe. And at that point, I'm going to throw it across, I think, to Sav to bring in what chat's been saying, because I've just looked at where the big hand is on the clock and it's hurtling towards 1 and 2 together.
It is. I'll quickly go over some of the stuff that I had before we went on to the early day motion. Vaping Bad has said, it's probably the good people in public health are angry at the BS that they swallowed, and those who fed it to them are now just kicking back.
Mm-hmm.
John Lonsdale has said, I wish Deborah Arnott and Linda McCavan could be in the same room together. Now that would be interesting.
That would be the cat fight, end all cat fights.
Yeah. Max Drum has said, can this silly woman read? All she has to do is read Professor West's research. Very Boring has said there may be a revolt going on in Health Wales, to which Rob Taffy has said good news for us in Wales, and Ridian has said Labour in Wales are on their own. And Max has said, I think the problem is that they have realised that people are doing something for themselves without public health being involved.
Yeah, that's a really big thing, Sav.
Yeah.
It's like people have just taken it. You know, no public health people have been involved. No taxpayers' money has been spent, no NHS resources, no policy statements, no endorsements. It's actually a bottom-up thing, and they're sort of thinking, oh, we weren't involved.
Yes. Well, they should have done what we did. When we weren't invited, we got these two lads to go.
Yeah.
Go on, say again, Simon, I lost you.
One right at the end, and Rob, bear me out on this. Yeah, other people, and then we were chatting to Ellen, who is actually Deborah Arnott's opposite number in Wales, and she specifically said at the end of it, "Thank you for coming. We very much appreciated your input that we put there. We would like you to come back to our future events, and the offer is open to all vapors."
That's great.
Wow.
That's great.
That is fabulous. I think all the vapors in Wales and all the vapors in the rest of the UK owe you two guys a big debt of thanks and gratitude for going along there and doing what you did on our behalf and everybody's behalf today. And the fact that you've got an invitation like that from Ash Wales is absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much for dropping whatever it was you were doing and going and doing that. Thank you for that. Thank you too for coming and joining us tonight and sharing the experience with us. I've had a whale of a show. I've enjoyed this tremendously. It's been marvellous. I need also to say thank you to Clive, not only for tonight, but for the tireless and sterling work you've done over the last couple of years. It's been a great pleasure to have been associated with you, and I'm looking forward to a further association as we go through things. Are you in the Houses of Commons on Tuesday by any chance?
I am not, no.
I will be. I might give you a bell before I go for a few sage words of advice.
All right, okay.
That'll be good. And of course, I have to say thank you to Sav and the backroom team as well, who have, I am sure, been extremely busy tonight. Have you, Sav?
Yes, been very busy. Unfortunately, there's so many things I haven't been able to read out.
Is that haven't been able to, or too scared to say things like bullshit?
No, I can't. Bullshit's fine. My brain can't work quickly enough to translate. There's so many words I've never even heard of appear in our chat these days. It's like, wow, the swear filter needs updated.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before you go, can I just plug my Q&A that I've published on my website and ask people to come back with additional questions or better answers?
You can, and you just did. You heard it here. Go to clivebates.com. It's dead easy. It's his name.com, no spaces, and do as you have been bid, because he knows what he's doing, does Clive. And if we can help,
send me questions that people think need to be answered, and I'll try and get the best answers I can together.
Can you ask Martin McKee why he doesn't just bugger off and die?
Send it in.
I wish he would. Make life a hell of a lot simpler.
Send it in, I'll give you the answer.
Right.
The answer is, he's a bloody professor. He's got a secure job with no accountability, and he can say whatever bollocks he wants with impunity.
Fair enough. There you go. That's why he comes up with all the crap
That's
he comes up with.
straightforward.
Yes, indeed it is. As per usual, because it's time to go, I'm going to throw it across to Sav for the last word from chat as ever was. What have they got to say this week?
We've got 3 last words from chat, and I'm actually going to read one of the comments that I wouldn't normally read, so I'll save that one to the end.
Oh, I can't wait.
Semavara said, a vendor told me that their best day of sales was the day the BBC did the World Health Organization story.
Mm-hmm.
Kizzy said, huge cheer to all of you. Well done, Pete Simon, and of course, Clive the man. And Stamina, who's had some corking comments tonight, has said, wow, nursing a semi and bashing the bishop all in one show.
Oh dear. You can't top that, can you?
You can't, can you?
You can't. It just remains then for me to say another thank you to all of my guests tonight and our backroom team, but most of all to you for watching. I'm taking a great deal of encouragement from all of this. I am nursing the semi, and Bishop bashing can wait. Lost me thread there, Saf. I just got a picture in my mind that nobody wants. If you could just send the mind bleach over, that would be great.
It's a childproof bottle, mind.
Oh, Dave proof if it's childproof. There's no two ways about it. Don't forget that on Sunday night, Dave will be back with Dave's Tackle Box. Monday night is the Here's Hour. Next week, VT Talk will be on Wednesday. Gary Dibley and I have swapped nights, for the simple reason that on Tuesday I'll be down in the Houses of Parliament watching Sarah Jakes, who will be addressing the Lords and Ladies and MPs at the all-party parliamentary group on smoking, I think it's called, isn't it, Clive?
I don't know. Yeah, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it probably is, yeah.
The one that Ash drives.
Or tobacco, I can't remember which. But
it's one of the two. So I shall be down there with Sarah, with Lorian, and with John Diver, and we'll be in the audience. So when we get back on Wednesday, I'm going to bring Sarah and Lorian in, and we'll tell you exactly what went on in the Houses of Parliament next Tuesday night. So that's next Wednesday night for the next VT Talk. And then Thursday and Friday of next week, which is another reason why we've swapped it across, I'll be down at the UK National Smoking Cessation Conference again with Sarah, John Diver, and Lorian, where we will be displaying ourselves, apparently, exhibiting ourselves. So that'll be good. And it's very, very busy from now until the end of the month. So it's all good stuff, and it's all positive stuff, and it's all engagement with those who would govern us. So don't forget to tune into all the shows over the next few weeks, next few days, and we'll keep you up to speed with everything that's going on. So once again, thank you to Pete, Simon, Clive and Sav for tonight. Great big thank you to you for watching, and don't forget, vape on, vape hard, and don't let that bastard Drakeford grind you down. Till we see you next time, take care. Bye bye. Say bye bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.